"Help! Someone please! I need help over here!" The desperate cry echoed across the construction site. The workers' eyes widened as they fixed on the surreal scene before them. A wolf, soaked and exhausted, struggling to keep its head above water in an enormous metal tank. Time seemed to stand still as the animal, once wild and majestic, now silently pleaded for human assistance. The workers were torn between instinctive fear and overwhelming compassion. With trembling hands, one man grabbed a rope, his tense muscles ready to act. The air was thick with tension, each second feeling like an eternity. How would they manage to rescue a full-grown wild wolf in such a predicament? And if they succeeded, what would happen once they got it back onto solid ground? The consequences of this fateful moment were about to unfold in ways no one could have anticipated. Want to discover the whole story? Please click the subscribe button and tell us in the comments, what part of the world are you watching from? In the vast forests of Romania's Carpathian Mountains, where wolves still roam freely, human expansion had begun to encroach upon the wild domains. It was early spring, and a new road was being constructed to connect remote villages to the nearest town. The construction site, situated at the forest's edge, stood in stark contrast to the natural landscape surrounding it. Under the weak afternoon sunlight, a small wolf gazed toward the shore with a desperate look. His eyes, filled with pain and anguish, reflected the cruel reality of his situation. He knew with agonizing clarity that he couldn't escape from the deep, cold pit where he had been trapped for 2 days. The young wolf had merely ventured out to forage for food, as he did every day. But fate had played a cruel trick on him. Wandering near the forest's edge, he had unwittingly approached a construction site. One misstep, a moment of distraction, and he found himself tumbling into an enormous metal tank, part of the site's drainage system. The ice-cold water enveloped his body like merciless claws, draining his strength with each frustrated attempt to escape. The cold penetrated to his bones, numbing his limbs and clouding his mind. As the hours passed, quickly turning into days, the wolf felt his hope ebbing away like the water dripping from his soaked fur. Exhausted and chilled to the bone, the animal struggled to keep his head above water. His howls for help, once strong and resonant, had dwindled to weak, desperate whimpers. With each passing minute, the possibility of survival diminished, and the small wolf began to accept his sad fate. But destiny sometimes has surprising ways of changing the course of things. When all seemed lost, when the last thread of hope was about to break, something unexpected happened. The sound of human voices and the noise of heavy machinery reached the wolf's sensitive ears. On a Monday morning, the workers arrived at the site as usual, and for the first time in 2 days, a spark of hope shone in the animal's eyes. Could this be the rescue he had been waiting for? Or was it just another cruel illusion created by his exhausted mind? With the last of his remaining strength, the wolf decided to make one final attempt. Gathering all the energy he still possessed, he let out a weak howl, laden with desperation and plea. Now, all the small wolf could do was wait and hope that someone would hear him, that someone would come to his rescue before it was too late. The wolf's feeble howl echoed through the air, almost imperceptible amid the construction noise. But by a stroke of fate, 2 workers passing near the enormous metal tank, used as part of a drainage system, heard the desperate sound. Curious and somewhat apprehensive, they approached the water's edge, their eyes scanning the surface for the source of the noise. That's when they saw him, a small wolf, soaked and shivering, struggling to stay afloat. His eyes, once wild and distrustful, now pleaded for help. The sight of the animal in such a state of desperation deeply touched the 2 men. Without hesitation, they immediately stopped what they were doing, determined to find a way to rescue the creature in distress. One of the men, thinking quickly, ran to the equipment truck. He returned moments later with a sturdy rope. With swift, precise movements, he tied one end of the rope to a secure point on the bank. The other worker, meanwhile, tried to calm the wolf with gentle words, even knowing the animal probably couldn't understand them. Carefully, the man with the rope descended the slippery bank, getting as close as possible to the wolf without falling into the water. With surprising skill, he managed to lasso the animal's neck, as it was the only part of the body above water, and therefore the only part that offered the possibility of catching him without risking an attack. The wolf, in his state of exhaustion, didn't offer as much resistance as they expected. "Now, let's go!" the man shouted to his companion. Joining forces, the 2 began to pull the rope. The weight of the waterlogged wolf made the task difficult, But they didn't give up. Slowly, inch by inch, they brought the animal to the safety of a platform several feet above. They exercised extreme caution because if the animal became frightened and started to thrash about, the rope could come loose and all their work would have been in vain, making the rescue even more difficult. Finally, with one last effort, they managed to pull the wolf out of the water. The animal was placed on solid ground, his body shaking violently, both from cold and exhaustion. His eyes, though clouded with fatigue, shone with a newly kindled spark of hope. The two men looked at each other, their faces a mixture of relief and concern. The wolf was alive, but clearly in poor condition. He needed urgent care. One of the workers, the one who had lassoed the animal, made an impulsive but compassionate decision. "We can't leave him here like this," he said to his colleague. "I'm going to take him home, at least until he recovers." His companion looked at him with a mixture of admiration and concern. "Are you sure about this? It's a wild animal, could be dangerous. Do you think you can handle him?" The man looked at the wolf trembling on the ground, their eyes meeting for a brief moment. In that gaze, he saw not a dangerous beast, but a frightened creature in need. "I'm certain," he responded firmly. "I can't abandon him now." With care, he picked up the wolf in his arms. The animal, too weak to resist, merely trembled in his embrace. And so with determined steps, the man began his journey home, carrying with him not just a rescued wolf, but also the beginning of an unlikely friendship. The man arrived home carrying the soaked and trembling wolf, his family initially shocked by the sight. Mindful of the animal's wild nature, he quickly improvised a secure space in the basement, isolated from the rest of the house. Carefully, he placed the exhausted wolf in a corner on a pile of old blankets. The animal, though weakened, showed signs of agitation when placed in unfamiliar surroundings. His eyes, full of fear and distrust, followed every movement. The man, understanding the danger, instructed his family to keep their distance. In those crucial first moments, the man worked alone. With slow, deliberate movements, he placed a bowl of water and another with raw meat at a safe distance from the wolf. The animal, hungry and thirsty, watched with a mixture of desire and caution. The warmth of the basement, though modest, began to heat the wolf's chilled body. Gradually, his fur dried naturally. The man, maintaining a respectful distance, spoke in a low, gentle voice, trying to calm the frightened animal. In the days that followed, the family took turns observing the wolf from afar, always maintaining a safety barrier. The animal remained in the corner, alternating between periods of deep sleep and moments of tense alertness. Food and water were replenished regularly, always when the wolf was sleeping or distracted. Daily, when the man who saved him came home, he went straight to see the wolf and sought some interaction with him. Using a long, thick glove, he tried to help the wolf understand that everyone in that house only wanted to offer him affection, care, and shelter. The family's patience was tested to the maximum. They knew that any sudden movement or premature attempt at contact could be disastrous. Gradually, the wolf began to get accustomed to the sounds and smells of the house, though he still maintained a defensive posture. As the days passed, a subtle transformation began to occur. The wolf, previously so cautious, began to relax in the presence of his rescuers. The wounds on his body, carefully treated by the family, began to heal. His strength returned little by little, and with it, a new vitality. The animal not only recovered, but also began to gain weight rapidly. His coat, once dull and tangled, became softer and more lustrous under the family's attentive care. The change wasn't merely physical. There was a transformation happening in the wolf's behavior as well. He began to explore the house with more confidence, his once hesitant steps now firmer and more curious. The backyard became his new playground, where he ran and played, rediscovering the joy of moving freely. But the most notable change came in his interaction with the family, especially with the man who had rescued him. The wolf began to react positively to his presence, sometimes even wagging his tail in an almost canine manner when he saw him. It was as if he recognized and appreciated the love and protection he was receiving. In the evening, when the family gathered in the living room, the wolf now joined them, lying near the feet of his savior. His eyes, once full of fear and distrust, now shone with a mixture of contentment and gratitude. The family realized that behind that wild appearance was an animal capable of giving and receiving affection. The wolf demonstrated a surprising awareness, as if he understood exactly who loved and protected him. As days turned into weeks, it became clear that something extraordinary had happened. What began as an act of compassion had transformed into a deep and unexpected connection. The wolf, fully recovered, showed no desire to return to the forest. This small house had become more than a temporary shelter. It had become his home, and this unlikely family, his new pack. The months passed, and the wolf's presence in the house became a natural part of the family's daily life. What was once a wild and frightened animal had transformed into a loyal and affectionate companion. The house, formerly a strange and intimidating environment for the wolf, was now his safe haven, a place where he truly felt at home. The man who had rescued the wolf observed with admiration the animal's transformation. He vividly remembered the day he had brought home that trembling, frightened creature. Now, looking at the wolf comfortably lying on the living room sofa, he could hardly believe the change. The wolf had adapted surprisingly well to domestic life. He had learned to respect the boundaries of the house, to interact gently with the children, and even to coexist peacefully with the family's other pets. His intelligence and capacity for learning were remarkable, often surprising everyone with his understanding of household routines and rules. But most impressive was the bond that had formed between the wolf and his savior. The animal followed the man everywhere, his attentive eyes always fixed on him, as if afraid he might disappear. When the man came home from work, the wolf greeted him with enthusiasm, wagging his tail and emitting small howls of joy. The family discovered that behind that fierce appearance was a gentle heart and an unwavering loyalty. The wolf had become not just a pet, but an integral member of the family, each in their own way. The children loved playing with him in the yard, and the wolf demonstrated surprising patience, adjusting his strength to avoid hurting them. At night, he would lie at the foot of the couple's bed, like a silent and devoted guardian. Over time, news of the domesticated wolf spread throughout the neighborhood. Initially, there was apprehension and concern, but as people witnessed the animal's docile and friendly behavior, fear gave way to curiosity and eventually acceptance. The wolf became something of a local celebrity, a living symbol of the power of compassion and care. His story inspired many to look at wild animals with new eyes, recognizing in them not just creatures to be feared, but beings capable of forming deep and meaningful bonds with humans. For the man who had rescued him, the wolf was a constant reminder of how a small act of kindness could change lives. He had saved the wolf from certain death, but in return, the animal had given him something equally precious, a unique friendship and a lesson about the power of love and trust. As the years passed, the wolf aged alongside his adoptive family. His coat, once black as night, was now sprinkled with gray, but his eyes still shone with the same intensity and loyalty as on the first day. The story of the man and the wolf became a local legend, a tale about compassion, courage, and the unlikely bond between species. It was a living testimony that sometimes the simplest acts of kindness can have the most extraordinary results, transforming not only the life of one creature, but also the lives of everyone around them. And what about you? What would you do if you found a wild wolf in danger? Would you be willing to open the doors of your home, as our hero did, even if it posed some risk to your family? Please share your thoughts with us here in the comments. And if you love animals, click the like button and subscribe to our channel. Together, let's reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers. When you subscribe, you help us spread the principles of true friendship, love, and care for animals. Join us and let's influence this world to take better care of our animals. I'll give you a moment to like and subscribe. Now picture a lonely young farmer facing a sea of mud on a desolate farm after a fierce storm. In the center of this treacherous mire, only a dog's head remains visible, its eyes shining with hope and desperation. With the sun rapidly hardening the soil, the race against time begins. Will he manage to save the life of this new four-legged friend and find renewed purpose? Ready to feel the suspense and courage of this incredible journey? Click now on the video appearing on your screen and follow this moving story. Unforgettable adventures are always just one click away. I'll see you in the next video.